Okay. Yeah, my video is enabled again. Hello, folks. Welcome once again to Thinking Out Loud. In today's episode, you're gonna let me just do something. I forgot to close my YouTube window, and I was hearing myself double. So, welcome again. In this episode today, we'll be speaking about SNKPI 3.0 and the work that we're doing to get there, to get into the next major version, which is, or it looks like it's going to be a huge release, and it's going to take a bunch of time. For that matter, we have Sergio, Moya, and Jonas Lagoni. Both are, like TSC members and async campaign maintainers of different repos. So yeah, I'll introduce them in a second. Before I forget, I want to do this collaboratively. So if you want to join the conversation, use the chat. Don't be shy. Like if you want to join us, like you want to give your perspective on something or ask a question about something to any of us, just do it. Let's make it interactive and community driven, like everything we do here on AsyncKPI, right? Also, before I forget, we have enabled closed captions on our YouTube channel. So if you need or prefer to have closed captions, head over to YouTube and you will see them there. If you can't, please let me know, and we can tell you ways to add them. Let's say to enable them in a different way. And also, yeah, just a little bit or brief explanation of what thinking out loud is. So the purpose of thinking out loud is I used to call it like the most boring show ever, and and it doesn't have to be boring, but because it doesn't have to be a show, right? So the thing is, it's not a show. I hope it's not boring. And I hope it's entertaining, but it's more like a chat, like a casual chat. There's no script. The only prepared thing that we know is that we're gonna talk about AsyncPI 3.0 and the work that is happening around it, and that's pretty much it. I actually have Sergio and Jonas talking to me privately, saying, "What can go wrong?" Right? Like, Let's just do it. Exactly. Let's just do it. What can go wrong? Let's let things go wrong. That's fine. Let's embrace chaos, as I was telling them before. So yeah. Speaking about chaos, I can't see Jonas and Sergio's on camera, so we're gonna do a live test and let's see what can go wrong. So let me just add Sergio. Jonas, you're there. Perfect. You see,
Nice.
you gotta
It
embrace
works.
chaos. And let me just add Sergio.
Oh,
Whoa, nice. Let me
hey.
change the layout a little bit. No, that's too much. That's too much for me. I don't like this one either. Okay, let's take this one. I'll move there. Welcome, folks. Welcome to Thinking Out Loud. I mean, not welcome to Async API. You're long-term contributors already. So, but yeah, for those who are watching the live stream right now or the recording, remember there's a recording. So
Thank you.
you may want to introduce yourself to those who don't know you. Who goes first? I'm gonna play devil.
Sergio. Which way is this? This way?
You
Okay,
appear
Jonas, you're
first.
next.
Jonas.
God
You're in the
damn.
middle.
Damn. But yeah, I'm Jonas. I am release coordinator for 3.0 and starting to be a long time contributor for Async API. But yeah, mostly involved in tooling and not that much in spec, even though that I'm release coordinator for 3.0. So now I'm forced to. But yeah.
That
That's
sounds really bad, like I'm forcing you or something.
no. Not at all. Only a little. Nah, not at all. It's kind of natural, right? Because as soon as you start working with tooling, then you get involved with spec naturally. So, and that's kind of where am at the moment.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, so well, in my case, it's not that like so much time. It's like a year I started working with Async API. Before of this, I knew a few folks who were working and using Async API, but nothing else. Regarding the spec, I'm working closely with the spec. In fact, I'm the release coordinator of the 2.4 release, and I'm trying to help Jonas with the release of 3.0. So I'm involved in some issues and initiatives behind that.
So say hello to Lucas. He
Hey,
must be
Lucas.
he must be relieved that for once he doesn't have to be doing a live stream or a meeting. So yeah, hey Lucas, we actually miss you. We should be inviting you on each Thinking Out Loud, even if it's just a small video somewhere in a corner or something. Just just watching him. So cool. So for today's episode, I my vision of this or yeah, my vision of this episode is that we get to tell people where we are, right? Like where we are with in regards to the Async API 3.0, right? And all the work that is happening around, not just the spec, right? So um, so this question is uh, for Jonas. Let me just start directly, asking you directly. Where do you think we are right now?
I mean, we are in the very, very early stages because nothing is concrete yet. The plan is that as soon as we start moving things into like getting merged into the spec, we can start using it in the tooling like immediately, more or less. So we can kind of verify as we go as well that this is the right change that we're doing. But we are in the very early stages. The branches have just been set up. There's still a few things that I'm missing.
Which branches you mean?
So
I know
for
the
the
branches. I'm asking. I'm wearing the audience hat. Like,
that's fair. So for the 3.0, we have or everything lives in a separate branch from the main branch in spec, JSON schema, spec repository, and the parser repository. And that is where all of the changes are happening continuously as we go and as things are forming to be like complete. And this goes back to how changes are made in the specification, back to our request for common setup, where we move from IFC 0, which is just an idea, then it gets more concrete and we start working on actual changes for the specification and then in the tooling, right? And once it reaches IFC 3, right? Or is it 2? I can't remember. It has implementations in Parser and in the specification and are just waiting to be merged into the main branch. And those branches where that lives are just been set up more or less. So we are ready to move ideas to IFC 1 and 2 and 3.
So I should probably mention that all this work is happening on a separate branch because there we still continue the development of like Sergio said, like 2.4, 2.5. I was going to say maybe, but not maybe. 2.5 will be released. 2.6 most probably before 3.0 will be released as well. So most probably. So there is a long-lived branch that represents the version 3 of the spec, and that is where people should be looking at right now, right? Which is this next spec, next spec branches. That's you made it hard on purpose.
Yes, okay.
So Sergio, when Jonas was talking, he was mentioning this this thing about the spec that we're releasing on the next spec branch, and also spec JSON schemas and the parser. And when he mentioned the parser, I was like, blink. Sergio, what's going on the parser?
What's going on? Yeah, so 3.0 has potential work to be included that it's breaking change in the spec. That means also in schemas and as well on the parser, right? So this is something that we are facing every time we release a major version of the parser, sorry, of the spec, that breaking changes are also propagated into the parser. Why? Because the current parser it's mainly tied to exactly the same structure that async API documents have, meaning the API of this parser. It looks exactly so you have to navigate exactly as if you would be navigating the async API document. Like channels are under document channels, operations are inside channels. So you have to know completely the spec in order to use the parser. Any breaking change in the spec means a breaking change in the parser. So since we knew about that, we wanted to develop something that avoids propagating breaking changes into the parser, or at least trying to avoid all of them, right? So we developed or we started developing a new API that it's called Parser API. The name is amazing, which basically tries to abstract the concepts of async API, the core concepts on async API, that it's channels, operations, servers, messages, etc. But not in the way how they are structured in the document, in whatever version of async API. Rather, to create a global API, like a common interface where no matter which version of the spec you use, you still can use the same interface, the same API on the parser. Meaning, in this case, since this is not released yet, breaking change will appear in the new parser version, right? But for the future, if we release spec 4.0, theoretically, we shouldn't have breaking changes on the parser if we implement this new API. So we decided to put all our efforts into there and move from the concept to the practical area. And basically, the new version of the parser will include this new API, supporting 3.0, but also supporting some of the 2.x versions on the spec. But that's not all. I don't know
So,
if I can
so
continue saying it.
so that's no, that's fine. I mean that was cool. But and actually, I was thinking right now that this is actually super cool because what you're saying here is that future major versions of the spec like 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, whatever. Theoretically, of course, we cannot predict the future, but as much as we can foresee, um, will not be producing breaking changes on the parser. And some people might be wondering, like, so what? Like, what does it mean to me, right? I don't care. That's a problem for you. You don't have to release, or you have to release major versions of the parser. So yeah, we'd love to clarify here that that means that whoever is using the parser or any other tool that is leveraging the parser behind the scenes, which is most probably every async API tool, right? Not only the official tools, but also external, community contributed tools, or um, even proprietary tools that people keep in their companies and they don't share. They might be leveraging the parser behind the scenes. So that means that if they want to go from 3.0 to 4.0 to 5.0, they can immediately upgrade the parser dependency, and it's supported. It starts being supported by this tool, right? Obviously, it only supports whatever was in the spec at the time, not the new features, right? So we cannot, if we tomorrow we add, I don't know, support for aliens, right? Say for instance, we cannot provide an API for the aliens because we don't know we're going to provide support for aliens in the future, right? So that's I think that's understandable, right? But that is actually pretty cool. So that means less headache on the user side, because they will not have to update their code so often. They might have to just upgrade the dependency on the parser or the tool they're using, and that's it. Immediately they can start using async API 4, 5, 6.0, right? Like completely, like immediately, right? And that is to me is that it's super cool. Which reminds me, and that's usually one of the fears why people don't want to release spec versions very often, because people think like, if we release versions very often, we're gonna break people's code and tools and so on. And yeah, people will get tired of us and they will stick to whatever is good for them or good enough for them, like say 2.3, and they will not update their versions in years, because what for, right? Like they're getting they're getting a lot of troubles and a lot of difficulties for almost no value, or at least the value is not worth for them, right? So what we're trying to avoid here is precisely that people can upgrade without fear, and we can continue developing the spec without the fear that we cause breaking changes. And obviously we'll try to avoid breaking changes at all costs, or at least group them as we're doing now with version 3. But we're not going to be releasing a major version every 3 months. Well, but at least I promise. I promise I will try. But yeah, that's the whole idea, right? And for those who are curious about like how are we going to do that, right? How are we going to avoid breaking changes on the Parser API? Like, the term that comes to my mind always is the facade, right? It's a facade. That is often a term used in software engineering. How do you think we, or can you explain a little bit more, like what's going to be the why is it different that it will not propagate breaking changes?
Yeah, the term facade, I think it makes sense on this. It's kind of this, like a facade pattern. Um, the point is that we created an interface of the models that are common in every async API spec version, no matter what. As I said, channels, operations, servers. Unless those changes, which is not so, I don't know, I don't expect to change those in the next 2 or 3 major versions, please. But so it means at the end you are hitting an API that it's well known, that it's implemented by any parser. It doesn't mean it's only the parser written in JS or TypeScript. I will tell more later. But also the one written in Go, Java, whatever, all of them will implement eventually this new API. How that work internally? Yeah. For example, in Go or in TypeScript, whatever, you have your own interfaces that are a match between what we define it in the Parser API. Parser API, it's just a document, a markdown of all the models or the functions that your models have to implement in some kind of pseudocode. So every time we release a new major version, a new implementation of that interface will face into your repository, into your parser, for example. So it's just a matter of creating a factory pattern, for example, that matches the version you want to use one model or the other. But all of them will implement the same interface, which is the Parser API interface. Yeah, me too. I want that shit.
Well, I wasn't sure. Before we get there,
Yeah, I just wanted to add. So if there is a breaking change, it's just a matter of changing the implementation. If instead of getting operations from channels, you have to get it from the root of the document, it's just changing the implementation of that function.
exactly.
That's all. For example, deprecations also work in that way. You can deprecate from one version to other and just add a notice whenever you use a method.
Exactly.
Or
Yeah,
provide some guideline.
Or some defaults as well. Like if something is deprecated, like something gets removed from version 3, let's say something that returns an array gets removed from version 3 to version 4, then it's as easy as returning an empty array, right? Like or whatever is the equivalent, right? Of course. So it's like you can of course print a notice or something like that, deprecation notice, but from the working code point of view, it's just we can make decisions like okay, it used to return an array of some things, some
You can
objects.
provide alternatives. Yeah.
There's a default that from here on you can still use it. It's deprecated, and but it's going to return an empty array with that specific version of the spec. If you use a previous version of the spec, it will return something, right? So yeah, I actually like this approach, and something that that comes to my mind as well is, so the I think the real deal here is instead of accessing, like you were saying, the structure of the document, like info, title, something like that, and then if something moves around or change names or something like that, it gets broken. Instead of this, what we offer instead is like a set of root methods that are not trying to map the spec structure, but instead they try to map user intentions, right? So usually when you want to query an async API document, you have a purpose, you have an intention. I want to get all the messages that this application is publishing, for instance, right? That's all. That's what you want to get. You don't want to navigate the whole structure and find them, right? That's something that you have to do to get them. But instead, what we offer here is like, no, you don't have to do it. We give you a method that is, give me all the published messages, right? And like this, we should be offering a bunch of things. Like it will be evolving over years. Like you need something, like you need an edge case, maybe. Like I want to get all the messages that are being published, but only those who are being published to this broker, not all of them, right? So same thing there will be, maybe not initially, but in the future there will be a way to filter them. So so the function itself in your code, when you're calling the parser, remains the same, and there's no breaking change as we just discussed. But yeah, cool thing is that so I think the real deal here, the real change, is that it maps to user intentions. Actually, it's intent-driven API, right? That was the name of the of the API, and yeah. So yeah, before we jump into the next thing, I want to thank Alejandra. Right. So, thank you. I love it as well. I was questioning if I should be wearing it or not, but thanks anyway. And you see, we interact with each comment, with each person that leaves a comment on the chat. So that's what I want to. That's the message that I want to send. Like, get engaged with us. Don't just listen to us. And Sergio was just sharing something with me in the private chat, and I'm gonna share it here. Okay. So this is where all the fun is happening for the new Parser API, this intent-driven API, right? So yeah, it is not for JavaScript. It is not for Java. It is not for Go. It's language agnostic, as much as possible, of course. And yeah, that's the whole thing. Changing a little bit subject. I was thinking now that, Jonas, why do we need version 3? That's a complicated question, maybe, but I want you to think out loud.
That's a good question, right? Because
because we need to
as
do
soon as
something.
we just want to do something. No. So so yeah, as soon as you say that you want to do a breaking change, you get pushed back by the community, which is expected, right? Because you are kind of forcing them to adapt to something that you think is broken in the current way that we define things with the specification. The problem is that those problems that are raised as issues in the spec are things that makes it hard to use. Like it makes the specification hard to implement and use in a real world like scenario, right? And as soon as one of those issues should be addressed, for example, let's take the pub/sub confusion. As soon as you say that this is a problem that we should fix because it creates more confusion than it than the benefit you get out of leaving it there, then you have to make a breaking change. And as soon as you make that statement that you want to have a breaking change, then you might as well look at, okay, well, what else is broken? Like what's the pain points that you're experiencing currently, right? But I guess it's like you don't have to, but it makes everyone's lives much more easy to consume it and use it.
I agree. No, I agree. And that actually maps well to what I was mentioning before, that we always try to group all the breaking changes, of course. Like we don't want to be constantly breaking the spec. I mean, we could with the new parser, we could, right? But we don't have the parser yet. So, but with the new parser, we could just easily be launching
Yes.
without going even into 3.1 or 4.1. Like we can go like major to major, and that will be fine, because from the user point of view, is like, who cares? I mean, if it's abstracted. What's Sergio?
No, sorry, I just hit the mic. But
No, it's
I'm
because
gonna
I
no,
was
no,
in your
okay.
face.
Yeah. But that's possible because the community and the whole Async API initiative, it's involved in building their own tooling, right? I mean, it's not related with the topic today, but I want to emphasize that thing, that since we own our own parser, we can do that. It doesn't mean we are not breaking other tooling out there because we don't know that. And that's something that it's not perfect a scenario, but at least we always provide our own tooling, right? So that's why we can do things like that. Otherwise, we won't be able to, you can understand that releasing a new major version of the spec, it's a pain because you don't control your tooling, because community, or not community, but you don't provide the support from the initiative to the community to build or to manage the breaking changes, right? So this is totally worth, in my opinion.
I think you open a big box here, a controversial box that it's fine. And I love it. Uh, I love a controversial topic, so no worries. So I was thinking, as you were saying, like, we own the tooling, but we don't own all the tooling, of course. Like there might be, I mean, there are tools that are not under the Async API umbrella. That's fine. And there are actually, I have information that there are tools in companies, in closed source, proprietary tools that are parsing Async API documents. So these tools will get affected, right? So now, just thinking out loud, thinking out of my from the top of my head now, like, I was when I was proposing that we go for 3.0, and we make a breaking change, I was scared, a little bit afraid, that these people will simply be left out. if you're not using our tools, your tools are going to break. So you will have to make some effort to adapt to the new version, or what's worst is that they will not, and they will stay in 2 point something, right? Because that's what their parser supports, right? Now I was thinking, like, should we care about these people? um, and let me explain a little bit further. Like, should we care about people who are not sharing, contributing back to the project, sharing what they have internally, but they benefit from what we do in the open, as open source, and we're happy to accept any projects. Usually, I mean, that all projects that have been proposed to be accepted under the SNKP umbrella have been accepted. So so far we've been always accepting each contribution. So is it morally or ethically, like, correct that we care about them? Because we're caring about someone who don't care about us. Not us. We're caring about someone who don't care about the rest of the community. Say, for instance, an example. We don't have a Java parser, right? We want to have, at least myself, I want to have a Java parser, because the more I talk to customers, not users, sorry, not customers. Yeah, too much old school stuff. The more I talk to users, is the more I find that they're using Java and they want to use the spec in the Java ecosystem. They want to build tools for a Java ecosystem, so they need a Java parser. And I know, because I have more information as well, that there are at least 3 Java parsers out there, and they have not been contributed to async API. So now they're going to be broken with the new version. I mean, broken in the sense of they're not going to be supporting 3.0 if they don't update it, of course. But that's my question. Like, should we be caring about people who are not caring for the community, but they're getting the work from the community, like spec and other tools? They do something and now they don't contribute back.
It's a rough question, right? Because there's many perspectives as to why that's happening as well. Like, if you think about, like, why do they keep the tools for themselves, or let's say in their own repository on their own organization on GitHub? It's because it creates value for their company, right? In a sense, it creates like bigger evaluations. They can say, oh, we have this and this and this. But in the open sense, it's like it kind of goes against, like, not sure how to frame it exactly, but as soon as you donate the project to async API organization, the whole community can help you update it and make it up to date. So that way, it's not only you that's benefiting it, it's everyone that's benefiting from having this one parser in one language that everyone can use, and everyone is helping update whenever a new version of the spec comes out. Where if it's solely on your side, like your organization on GitHub, for example, it's your responsibility most of the time if you don't have a community around it that's helping you, like, stay up to date. So it's kind of two opposite forces, like business side and developer, not satisfaction, but like I'm not sure which
Experience.
word. Yeah, experience, developer experience, I guess. Yeah, that those are kind of competing forces there. That is.
But you said something that made me think. You said, like, maybe they keep it private because it's something that provides value for their company. I agree. Like, if it wouldn't provide value for their company, they wouldn't invest engineering time on something. That's, I mean, or they shouldn't at least. Um, but most probably they wouldn't. So, but like, there are two things here that come to my mind. Like, should they be, um, uh, sorry, so should we be, or is it our problem that it's um, it's providing value for them, and because of that reason they don't want to share? And another thing, because it provides values for them, doesn't mean that it needs to be kept private. I mean, it can provide value for you and still be open, right? I'm not saying donate into async API initiative. You can still keep it under your company's GitHub organization or something like that, and make it open, right? And accept contributions and manage it yourself. But at least it's open, right? At least it's available for others to use, right? You still control the roadmap, but at least, you know.
I think I want to say something, and maybe
It's okay.
I'm killing myself. But I think the real difference here, it's nothing else. I mean, I don't think that is like I don't know, the evil behind that. Like, we don't want to contribute to open source because open source sucks and whatever. No, I think just the difference is that companies build software like for getting revenue pretty fast. So they build software thinking on the short midterm. On the contrary, open source is built only, from my point of view, only thinking on the long term. So what I have seen um, in many companies is that they build prototypes pretty quickly, so they don't want to be involved with anyone out of their company because some reasons. I could name some of them, and then they think, okay, once this is going cool, we can move to open source this. But that never happened
Mhm.
because resources move into other area,
Mhm.
like they don't care, right?
Yeah.
Also, I think the process on the companies regarding security, code reviews of possible secrets being leaked into the software they create. All of this is pretty hard to maintain in companies, and I think they could be scared of
Yeah.
providing this to make
I
it
agree.
public, right? Just
Yeah.
public, not entering on the.
No, I agree. I agree. I agree that,
So
and actually, I think that's the main reason why these companies don't make these projects open source. I don't think it's evil. It's an evil decision. Like, we're gonna just fuck them. Like, we're not gonna open source this. Let's just use it for ourselves. I don't think there's evil behind it. But yeah, my concern was more, or my thought was more from the other side. Like, should we care? Like, uh, even either it's evil or not, we should make a decision, right? Like, we move into a breaking change or a major version, or we don't. And there's always fear. Like, they're not gonna be rewarded, right? Because they're not using our parser, but they have the choice to use our parser, and they even have the choice to contribute the parser, and then from there on we maintain it. But yeah, no, just thinking out loud. I mean, I don't think uh, it is it is because of agile. Yes. So, folks who are watching us, we are really into agile um, at Async API, and specifically at the Postman and the Postman team. Like, we love agile. We do everything on agile. Yeah, whatever that means. So yeah, and that's and that's why Lucas is always mentioning Agile, because he loves it. If you have any Agile questions, just ask him. So yeah, he will be happy to answer.
Yeah, and Magic is also a big fan of it. As far as
Yeah,
I know.
Magic is another a big proponent. Yeah,
Scrum Masters
Scrum
everywhere.
Master. Yeah.
I hope he's not watching.
So yeah, and so all this conversation came because like I was asking Jonas, like, why a major version, like why version 3, right? Why do we need it? And because all this conversation happened when we were discussing, I think under the proposal that I made on the public subscribe, I think all, or maybe not there, I think it was in another issue, I can't remember, but all this discussion happened on GitHub as well. Like, should we try not to make a breaking change at all costs? And yeah, and we have this publish and subscribe confusion. So for those who don't know what is it about, head over to the async API website and try to learn async API. And now, once you do it, try to tell me if publish and subscribe makes sense for you. Maybe it does. Depends on what you try to do. But don't try to do a WebSocket API or something like that. Try something involving a broker like Kafka or MQTT, Mosquito or something like that, or whatever, something, a broker, and then tell me if it makes sense to you. So the thing is that, well, summary is it doesn't make sense. It does make sense, but it's highly confusing. Like it is for me as well. Like I define this behavior as a mistake, to be honest. So I define it this way as a mistake because it was coming from OpenAPI. And in OpenAPI, it made sense because it's a client-server architecture all the time. So that's fine. But in this case, it's a problem. It's confusing. It's not that it's a problem, but it's confusing, right? But so then, yeah, like if you want to change this, we could be adding something. I don't know, maybe making the spec a little bit more nasty. Nasty is a word? I don't know. I don't think it's the, well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know if a spec can be nasty, but if it's cool, it will be nasty. So and making and adding more stuff, like adding more stuff to the spec just to try to cover this piece of shit that that we did, and then it's like just so it doesn't smell, right?
Sure.
So basically, we could do it, but then it will make the spec even more complicated and even more, you see, nasty. So it made sense. A spec can be nasty. So so yeah. So yeah, it was always in the air, like, should we go for major version or not, right? Like at least in the beginning. Now it seems to be clear, like, okay, we want a major version, and now the conversation was moved to tooling, right? Like then we should avoid at all costs breaking changes on user code bases, because yeah, it's a pain, right? So yeah. So it's almost, let's say, we still have like less than 15 minutes, and I don't want to finish forgetting about this. So who should be answering this? Let me just play devil here.
And we don't know the question. Like we're just sitting here waiting for him to.
Exactly. That's what I like. That's what I like about this format. You can do the same to me, by the way. It's both ways. Should we support multiple applications in a single async API file? Even more. I'll go even beyond that. Like, so async API 3 put the focus in the application, like should it represent an application? Other options can be representing the broker, can be representing, I don't know, no behavior at all, like no publishing or subscribing, just a list of topics and messages. Could be many other things. What do you think?
Jonas.
I'm just sitting here waiting for you to take it.
You have been involved in something like this, right?
Yes.
Oh, surprised. Yeah.
So I would like to know your opinion on it.
Oh, my opinion is there in
Exactly.
GitHub. You can check it
No,
out.
exactly. No, Jonas is right. Like he's been involved, so you already know his opinion. Now we want to know your opinion, Sergio.
To be honest, I got very excited at the beginning when this just got raised, because I saw the use case pretty clear by then, and we got some attraction by some frequent contributors, active contributors. But then, when we started elaborating, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonas, right? We saw that maybe we were like trying to add so much thing, or that's what was my impression, like so much thing into what the spec is, right? Like you said a few minutes ago, like we're trying to patch or trying to trick the thing to remove the smell or something like this. I don't know. Yeah, something like this you said. So that was my impression at the end as well. We were so much ambitious on what the spec should be, in my opinion. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, not at all. But maybe we should think on. I don't know if we discuss about this. I don't know what my brain is playing here, but maybe we should think on on another abstraction, like out of async API spec, like async API specs or async API applications.
Oh my God! Like,
but
your
not
faults
including
are.
inside.
So for those who are watching, like you are now watching the birth of a new spec. Just the same. That's how specs get born. Sorry for interrupt.
I will type down this night, overnight, and tomorrow we will have another spec. And Jonas will be the coordinator for
Up to
everything.
you. You maintain.
Absolutely not. No, it's
Jonas,
a good. It's
what's
a
your
really good
impression?
question. It's a really good question, right? Because we can see the problem being there. We just don't have enough context yet. Like we haven't seen it used enough to actually come to a conclusion that makes sense in the long run, I think. Because while we do have this problem of, okay, so if you use async API to define the application, what if you wanted to define an entire cluster or a system of multiple applications together, which forms the system in itself? And what the system is, that's up to discussion as well, because like, is it around is it around the broker? Is it around the domain? Is it around like there can be multiple answers and questions within this. And it's, as soon as you start diving into that question, like, should we support this with multiple applications or a collection of applications? We just don't have enough context, I think, yet, which is also kind of my conclusion, like trying to deep dive a little bit into it. It's like, we haven't seen it used enough from the application side of things to know exactly where this is going. So my answer is no. At least in my opinion.
I'm sharing. So Sergio is on the private chat sharing a lot of links. So yeah, I'm gonna just copy and paste what Sergio is putting on the chat, so I don't have to do anything else. Thanks, Sergio. Yeah, so that's true. Like we don't have enough context. I agree with this. Some people may have enough context, and that's why they were proposing this. Um, Thing is that we, as an open source initiative, as an open governance initiative, right? Because it can be open source but not open governance. Um, we need to make sure that whatever decision we take is for the best of all our users, or at least most of them, right? Um, so yeah, if just a few folks, one or two folks, propose that we have a collection of applications in a given way, that doesn't mean that this will be the best for everyone in this situation, right? So yeah, I agree that we lack a little bit of visibility on what are the needs, the user needs here, right? And that leads me to another and last topic, which is, I think it's an interesting one, which is how do we solve that? Like we lack visibility. We have many people contributing to the spec and the tooling, mostly to the tooling, not the spec. Actually, it's not like lots of people contributing to the spec. We don't have a lot. So this is a call for you to contribute to the spec, to the you who are watching. But the thing is that sometimes it's not just about contributing the text that you have to write, or the YAML, or the JSON schema files, or whatever. It's precisely this. It's like we don't have visibility. We don't have context. We don't know what will be the use cases out there. So I want to change my question. It was going to be a question, but I want to change my question because we don't have time. Like,
How's the weather?
how's the weather there?
how's-
That will be an awesome thing. um, should we release version 3 before it's clear for us that version 3 is gonna be good for the users? And if so, how do we make sure that we have that information? How do we measure it?
Big question.
That's yeah.
And we have 4 minutes.
Yeah,
Go,
I'm just.
Sergio.
I may sound smart, but I'm just translating all my problems to you now, just waiting for you to give me a solution. So that's all what I'm doing here.
I mean, from the technical point of view, it's obvious, right? We can build. We are pre-releasing everything we do, but that's not all, right? That's just a little bit of the iceberg. How we can reach the users that potential users that might want, and I emphasize want, to use the new versions, those that have the need of updating to the new versions. I don't know, I don't have an answer either. What I think it's important is that especially every major release, we should include changes that are improving the user experience, the developer experience, and then whatever features, right? So features that are kind of like accepted for several, not only for the from the TSC or from the common contributor. but somehow validate that with real use cases, companies or whoever use that. So in that sense, we will have features for feeding a bit the need, but at the same time, we are adding the value of improving user experience, which I think we are gonna um, get the audience or the users like happy enough. But anyway, I don't know how to how to do that. But maybe Jonas knows.
No, but I think it makes sense to release a 3.0 even though we don't have the full clear visibility of the use cases, because it solves all of the use cases that we have now, which is revolving around how do you define an API for an application in a non-specific protocol and binding and what's it called, like scenario. So it doesn't matter whether it's REST, whether it's Kafka or Nets or whatever way you define an, or in which context you want to define an API, you can do it with async API. Like that is more or less the main focus, is that there's no pain points in defining that. That is more or less what 3.0 is aiming to solve based on whatever issues we have gathered, right? That's more or less how I see it. Yeah.
Isn't it
And
a
how
double
to-
edged? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Nice. It's true. It's a double-edged sword, especially if version 4 and we see like, okay, so people don't actually define individual application level APIs with async API, but they define it in a system context. Then the changes that we're doing now might not be fitting anymore.
No, I was meaning because you said like we're solving known issues with the spec on version 3, but
Yes.
we're developers, and you know that developers, when they fix bugs, they introduce 2 new bugs. So so how do you make sure that we're not introducing even worse problems after this release, right? Now it's I'm creating a sense of fear in you. You don't want to release version 3.
No, not at all. Like, because whenever I use async API to define whatever project I'm working on, like these issues that are defined at the moment in the spec repo is whatever, like those issues I face every single time. So to me, that it's clear that those issues are there and needs to be solved if we want to define within this domain of defining APIs for an application. That's my kind of 2 cents.
Okay. I was looking at Sergio like maybe you want to add something that you already did. Okay. So I got a last question. It shouldn't take long, but it can take all the time you want. It was your first time on a live stream, I think, other than the the meetings that we do, which don't look like a live stream, but even though they are. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah,
you can be like completely honest. Like you can say like I hate you, friend, or something like that.
But that doesn't change anything.
No, no, it's a cool concept, right? Because like it doesn't get any more true than this, because we have no idea what we are going to discuss other than an overall subject. But still, there's kind of a fear in the background. Like even though that we work with this every single day, it's still like, what if I don't know something? Like we being asked or don't have a view on a specific topic, then it's always like, I kind of don't want to do it without knowing the questions beforehand. But yeah.
You're right.
But you
I think
made it.
Yeah,
I think we made it.
No, it was
as
great.
bad.
It was a great conversation, and I think we have to normalize saying, "I don't know," That's fine. We don't have to know everything, even though we work on this every single day, full time. Who cares? I mean, like, we cannot know everything. There are many things happening around async API, and also related to event-driven architectures that you might not know. So yeah. So we have to normalize saying I don't know. That's fine. That's completely fine. And that's why I wanted to invite you to thinking out loud. And it's like, let's just have a honest and transparent conversation, a chat like we will have privately, but in public. Right? So yeah. Cool, folks. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Gonna leave some few seconds in case someone wants to ask something, but it's usually not the case. But yeah, if anyone is interested in asking any question or something like that, or leaving a message to these rock stars that we have here on screen. Now I sounded like an HR guy, something like that, like a recruiter. we're hiring rock stars, but please don't do drugs. Like them. We need your brain and
At
touch.
least not the expensive ones, please.
At least don't abuse them. I mean, you can do drugs, but don't abuse their drugs. So yeah, I by the way, I always liked this. Like when they were approaching to me like a rock star, we're hiring a rock star developer, something like that. It's like, are you offered cocaine? Yeah, in the office or something like that. What is exactly like a rock star? Or do we do concerts every day? I don't know, because my voice might not be good for rock. So yeah.
You have to try.
You can try. Yeah, you never know. Just in case. Cool, folks. So thanks a lot for joining again, and yeah, see you around. We're always connected. So
See you later.
Say it, man. Thanks for
bye
having us.
bye. Ciao ciao.
Thank
Bye.
you.